Shalom Alechem, Erev Tov. I'm going to be very honest with you that as I was preparing tonight's shiur, I was a few other ideas kept coming into my mind, so I jumped down some rabbit holes of research that I didn't finish. And so it could be that today's shiur that was supposed to be one part, I might actually split it up into two parts, depending on how much ground we manage to cover together. But I'm in the laws of war, the book of Shoftim, Hilchot Menachim u'Milchamot, chapter 7. And we had left off already in halakha number 4. That was the last halakha that we read. And for those that are listening on YouTube and are probably listening to these closer to each other than those of you in person, a few weeks ago, I had given a shiur about the Shemen HaMishcha, the oil of anointing that we put on the head of the Kohen HaMashuach or of the kings or so on and so forth. And the Rambam had mentioned that we anoint the Kohen, and he uses a word, he says a kaf yivani, Greek numeral, the letter that he's referring to. And in the class, I told you it's a C because in the printed Rambam it's a C. And I was just about to tell you that there are a few different understandings of how to interpret this correctly. And someone asked the question, and on the YouTube video, I did not continue discussing it. And then by the next week, I didn't bring it up because we already were on a different topic. But today, someone sent me an email very concerned about the interpretation of the Rambam there, so I want to make it very clear. In the printed version of the Rambam, that letter seems to be a C, meaning a Roman, obviously not our C, but it could really be a K or an X. Rav Kapach is convinced that it's a K. Nonetheless, if you really want to jump down that rabbit hole, you're more than welcome to. I have resources to provide for that. It was not the Ikar, it wasn't the main point of my shiur, and I try not to dwell on things that are not the main parts of my shiurim, but it's a very important note. Whoever brought it up to me, it was very important that they did, so I appreciate that very much. For right now, we're continuing here, where the Rambam tells us that certain people, they come back from war. They are sent back because of a number of reasons. Tell me the reason. Just got build a house, their vineyard, or mi ha'ish hayareh v'rach halevav, the one who's very weak, scared.
They never did go. They leave before the war starts.
Correct. Meaning, Zev, that was half my problem today. That's what I was busy, the rabbit hole I was jumping down in. Let's just say for right now that most of these people, they go to battle, and before they enter the battlefield, remember we said in the border of Israel, they're sent back. They're sent back, and then and then we have this conversation about who are these people that are being sent back. Okay? Let's read together. 7, halakha daled. ואחר שחוזרים כל החוזרים מערכי המלחמה. And once we send back all the people from battle, מתקנין את המערכות, we fix all the units, there's a word, we arrange all the soldiers, all the troops, ופוקדים שרי צבאות בראש העם, and we put the heads, those officers in charge of the head of the army. And we mentioned that behind them, what do we put? ומעמידין מאחורי כל מערכה ומערכה שוטרים חזקים ועזים וחשינין של ברזל בידיהם. And behind the soldiers are these tough guys. They're the officers that are holding some kind of weapon on them, and they are ready to make sure that nobody runs away. וכל המבקש לחזור מן המלחמה, and anybody who tries to leave the battle, הרשות בידם לחתוך את שוקיו. He can slice their legs. שתחילת נפילה ניסה, because the first step of losing a war is retreat. When people retreat, then the war is already over. No, these are it's like their job. And they're also here, yeah. So the first ones, there are sarei tzevaot berosh ha'am. They're the heads of the units that go in the front. No, these are the guys in the back. These are like the opposite of bouncers. The bouncers make sure you can't get into the club. These guys are the ones that make sure you can't leave. Yeah, this is a different. I just read a story about that. There was one guy, Elchanan, you're going to like this story, it's for you. There was one guy who decided he was going to build a zoo. And he invested millions of dollars in this zoo. And he got special animals and exhibits and attractions and popcorn stands and whatever you need in a zoo. And he put the entrance price at, how much does it cost to get into SeaWorld today? My niece and nephew were there, like $120. It used to be, it's expensive nowadays, yeah? Maybe in a good sale, $90, but you don't have a AAA discount. You get in. He tried $100, nobody came to the zoo. He decided to run a promotion, $50 off. $50, nobody came to the zoo. He put a ticket, $10, nobody came to the zoo. He said, we're having a free day at the zoo. All of a sudden, thousands of people started showing up at the zoo. Everybody showed up at the zoo. He waited till the last guy came in. Then he went and he locked the gates. And he let out the lions from the exhibit. And then he stood by the gates and he said, anybody wants to leave? $500. And the guy overnight became a millionaire. Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch. People who are offering you things for free, it's because they have something. Very good. That's exactly the point. And so here, the main rule is there are people who make sure you can't leave the party, not the ones who make sure you come to the party. So it's like there are some stores. That's how they market. You ever been to IKEA before? I told my wife I'm taking on myself not to speak about things that I don't know about. I said something on Shabbat. I want to be careful what I say. So nothing bad. I've been to IKEA. How does IKEA work? You come to the store on one side of the country, and you exit on the other side of the country. Meaning you can't leave until you see the whole store. They build it like a maze. Yeah. Exactly. That's a whole nother problem. But it's the whole part. The whole part is there's a marketing gimmick here. Or there's a food court somewhere, but the food court is strategically positioned in a place where you're going to spend all your money. Or why do they put all the candies in the aisles at the checkout counter this far off the ground? Why? Because they want all your kids to see those. There are many psychologists that are in the realm of marketing. That's their whole job. They make sure. So here, we have a marketing tactic. How do we make sure you don't leave the battle? Try. Try. See what happens to you. במה דברים אמורים שמחזירים אנשים אלו מערכי המלחמה? In which war are we talking about that we send people back from war? במלחמת הרשות. Very good. This is an optional war. It's a war that the king elects to go to, such as to increase his boundaries, borders, to increase his money, he wants to conquer another country. אבל במלחמת מצווה, but in the war of a mitzvah, which is primarily the war against the 7 nations, the war against Amalek, and a war against anyone who is trying to kill the Jewish people. Yes? That's considered milchemet mitzvah. It's a war of a mitzvah. Hakol yotzin. Everyone goes to battle. Afilu chatan michedro. V'chala michupata. Even a chatan and a kala, a bride and a groom, from their wedding, they leave and they go to battle. And we mentioned last week, this is exactly where we ended off, regarding women drafting to the military, that we don't have women drafting to the military. Rather, that they are drafted, perhaps, a suggestion that Rav Kapach suggested, maybe they're drafted to the war effort. There are many things that need to happen during a war that are not, it's not active combat, and that's what we mean, chatan michedon v'chala michupada.
We can cover this, since the Torah explains the boundary of Israel, a war, are there laws governing to expand beyond the borders on a defensive way?
Sure, and there are different stages of which people conquer which lands, what status and halakha that land has. If a new king, and there's an entire section of conquests of land. People live in certain areas of Eretz Israel. Are they really part of Eretz Israel? Are they just the borders? We can definitely have a conversation about that. That's not a bad idea. But for right now, this is a general concept that we're dealing with is milchemet hareshut versus milchemet mitzvah. So now we're jumping back into the elective war. That's what I'm going to call the milchemet hareshut. And in the milchemet hareshut, the real question is, so who are the people that can go back from war? We already told you them. So why do we have to elaborate? Because halakha is never so vague. Halakha is usually quite clear. So let me give you an example. A person who built a house and has not yet lived in it goes back from war. Okay, how big of a house? Yeah. What about a house that he builds but he rents to somebody else? What if he builds a house, or let's say not a house, let's say he gets married but doesn't move in with her yet? What if he grows some trees but they're not fruit trees? How many trees before it's considered a vineyard? How many? And you can imagine that the reason we have to legislate these things is because, in my opinion, Rambam doesn't say this, There are con artists everywhere. You can imagine that, oh, there's trouble in the Middle East. Let me go build an extra house in my backyard. How big? For my dog. I'm going to build a dog house. Sorry, I can't go to war. Right? There has to be some kind of rule about who goes to war, who doesn't go to war. Yes? Is everybody who's exempt from going to war exempt from doing anything for the war? These are things that we have to really figure out, and that's why the Rambam is going to take apart each one of these things. What if you marry? So, I got married. I can't go to war. Okay, you got married. Is she Jewish? What if she's not Jewish? Can he exempt himself from going to war if he marries someone he shouldn't marry? Can he exempt himself from going to war if he builds a house in a place he's not allowed to live? So, for example, what about a Jew who built a house in San Diego? Is he exempt from going to war in Israel? These are good questions. The Rambam is going to have to answer every one of these questions. In order to do that, we're going to have to get a little bit technical, but don't get scared of the technicalities. That's part of what we're going to do together. So here's what the Rambam says. Halakha hey. Now we're going to talk about houses. Echad habone bait li'shivato. A person who builds a house in order to live in. Vechad habone bet habakar. And also a person who builds a house for his animals. Bet habakar is a barn. Yeah? Literally the home for his cows. Yeah, this is literally what it means. Bet ha'itzim, if he builds a storage unit to store his wood. Bet ha'otzar, why did he need a storage unit for his wood? Okay, so why store it? Why not just put it outside? Of course, but why a house? Because not everyone lived in San Diego. Yeah, it rains in some places. It gets frozen in some places. You want to make sure your wood is dry. You know what happens to wood is dry, not dry. So, Bet ha'otzarot, a storage place for your grains. They call them in English silos. That's the English word. Yeah. Ho'il v'ra'ui ledira. Because technically, a person could live in them. V'chad haboneh, v'chad halokeach, v'chad shenitan lo b'matana o hayoresh. And it doesn't matter whether you built one of these, or you bought one of these, or it was given to you as a gift, or you inherited it in an inheritance. So, someone asked me now if they were given something that would warrant the Shechianu blessing. It's not new, but it's new to them. Do they say Shechianu? What's the law? Makes you happy? It's new for you? If someone inherited a house to you, would you be happy? Yeah, of course. Now, would a person who bought a new house be happy? Yeah, it doesn't matter that one's an old house and one's a new house, but now you have a house, so for you it's new. So it doesn't have to be a house that no one has ever lived. It could be a house that someone gave to you. Or you bought a house. It doesn't have to be that you built a house, technically. How many of us actually build our own houses? These are all things, says the Rambam, all of them are included. Harei ze chozer. All of these people who built any one of these things because you could live in them, because technically, your garage where you store all your stuff, could you turn it into a place where you could live? Is it a livable place? Of course. The barn, if a person wants to live in the barn, can they? Of course. But there are people. What?
They smell it.
Sure. You know what they say? The guy said, how do you live in the barn? It smells. So don't worry, the animals got used to it. Aval habone bet Shaar. But if a person builds a bet Shaar, the way I understand it from the Mishnayot, because all of these Mishnayot are relevant at some point, either in the laws of Masrot or the laws of Eruvin, on Shabbat with the Eruvin. Why Masrot? Because you're only obligated to take tithes on the grains that enter your home. There are all kinds of people who try to launder their grains, meaning, what if I bring it not through my door, but I bring it through my ceiling? What if I put it in my garage, but not in my house? Because everybody wants to avoid paying taxes. So you learn many of these halachot from there. You also learn from the halachot Shabbat. Also, what I understand, the Beit HaShaar, it's some kind of entryway to the house, and I'll explain what I mean by entryway. Imagine that your front door is where I'm sitting, and the street is where the TV screen is. So then here there would be two walls, a door over here, a gate over there, and some type of like sukkah over here, some kind of bamboo or who knows what. So this is considered a bet Shaar. It's an entryway. The whole purpose, nobody lives here, nobody eats here. It's just an entryway to my home that's enclosed on two ends, one to the public thoroughfare and one to the private home. Yes, that's the bet Shaar. Achsadra. What is an achsadra? Is the Rambam in Perush Mishnah in his commentary on the Mishnah. He says it's a area in front of the house that has some type of like awning or gazebo over it. Yeah, it's in front of your home. It has three walls, meaning the wall of your house, and two walls this way, but it's not closed off to the public. In the front, it's open. Kind of like what you would say in English, you would call it a porch, no? It's kind of like that, yes? I don't know, we don't really have porches in San Diego, but let's say you imagine those people in Texas where, what? Kind of, maybe. The people in Texas, they have a porch, they're sitting over there with their shotgun and their cup of coffee, smoking a cigar, waiting to, the old American movie. That's how the guy, that's his achsada. Tom? And the last one is a mirpeset. This word is very emotional for me, the word mirpeset. Why? I got in trouble once for using the word mirpeset. Rachel, you're going to like this story. I was in first or second grade. And I'm saying first or second grade just so that if one day my teacher ever hears this video, they won't know that I'm talking about them. And I was in my English class, and I used to read a lot when I was a kid. Like I used to finish books a lot. My addiction at the time was books. I don't think it's changed much. What I was telling my wife, it could be drugs, it could be something else, it's just books. Baruch Hashem, everything is fine. It doesn't matter. The house is running out of space, but books. Baruch Hashem. And this one said there's a difference between reading books and buying books. They're two completely different hobbies. Not all the people who buy books ever read the books they have. Oh, but yeah, I think you and I have a similar problem. What is it? Okay, that's a good word. We should know that word. Good. So we should all move to Japan because that's a problem we have, Baruch Hashem. But here, you have this word. So I was in this class. I was above the reading level of the kids in my class. So what do you do with a kid who's bored in class? You just give them things to do so that they don't bother the class. For example, when my wife was in elementary school. No, I was right, high school. She was so bored in class. She was, Baruch Hashem, my wife was very smart in her high school. And the teacher told her, what do you want from me? Just go bring some photo albums from home, like your sister's wedding, and look at them during class. I mean, it's a school that doesn't know what to do with the children in the classroom, perhaps. So the teacher told me to take a notebook and to write stories or whatever, and they would grade me based on the story. I was writing. And I mentioned that there was a guy who went out to the mirpeset, and I wrote mirpeset, Mirpeset, mirpeset. I promise you, I thought it was an English word. I mean, my parents are Israeli. They spoke to me in Hebrew, but I knew, even between my brothers and I, we said mirpeset in English. We said, you go to the mirpeset, you come from the mirpeset. How am I supposed to know there's another word in English for mirpeset? From where? So I wrote mirpeset, and the teacher, with a red ink, crossed it out. What is that word? Jewish teacher. So they knew. They knew what the word was. Or maybe they didn't. I don't know. But I was thinking to myself, there was the first time I learned, I was this many years old when I found that mirpeset was not an English word. So now that I have the opportunity to teach you the word mirpeset, I want to explain to you what the word mirpeset is and then why it means what it means. Okay? The word mirpeset literally is a balcony. A balcony. So you'll probably see them. You have houses with balconies. Let's say you're on a second floor, and there's out of your house or out of your room is coming a balcony. That's actually not the legal working definition of a mirpeset in Hebrew. Mirpeset is kind of like a balcony. I'm trying to think if anyone here has one. Yeah, you for sure have a balcony. That I know. The kind of balcony I'm thinking about. My aunt Denise, when she used to live in Del Mar, had a house that you come out of the balcony, out of the house onto a balcony on the second floor, but it has stairs that go down to the backyard. Yes, so you can get to this balcony either from the house or from the stairs. Okay, that's an important reason. Why? Let me read to you what the Rambam writes in this commentary in the Mishnah. I just want to show you how words evolve. And here. Mirpeset. So the Mishnah uses the word mirpeset. This is Mishnayot Eruvin, chapter 8, number 3. You don't have to look it up. The Rambam says, Makom gavoha, berchavat hachatzer, ke'en gag. It's a place, a high platform somewhere in the courtyard. It's kind of like it looks like it's a ceiling, meaning it's raised. Gavoha sarat tefachim, it's at least 10 tefachim off the ground, which is about the height of that chair, let's say. It's at least that high off the ground. V'yesh bo madregot she'olin behen la'aliyot, and there are stairs that go from it to other places or down from it to other places. V'nikra mirpeset, and the reason it's called a mirpeset, lefi shehu midras le'elu she'olin la'aliyot, because it's the place where people go, they walk on it to go to other parts of the house, like to the attics or whatever else. Why is that an important word? Because can I get a Tanakh here? If you want to look up a pasuk, what does mirpeset have to do with stairs? I'm gonna open up Yecheskel, the prophet Yecheskel, and I looked this up before the class, so don't think I'm some. That? Yeah, from the mirpeset. Yes. So I'm trying to. What does it have to do with the fact that people walk through it? That it's called a mirpeset. So if you look in the Nevi'im in Yecheskel, look in chapter 32. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Yecheskel to prophecy about Egypt. ויהי ב-12 שנה, ב-12 חודש, ב-1 החודש, it was in this date, היה דבר אדוני אלה לאמור. Yecheskel, the prophet says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to me saying, Ben Adam sא קינה על פרעה מלך מצרים. Lament, eulogize over Paro, the king of Egypt. ואמרת אליו, and you should tell him, כפיר גויים נדמת. You're like a kefir. What's kefir? Not a yogurt in the store. Like a young cub, like a lion. You thought you were a young lion. You were very strong. Vata katanim bayamim. And you were like tanim in the seas. Today maybe you'll say tanin is like a crocodile, but some kind of reptile, this serpent in the seas. ותגח בנהרותיך, ותדלך מים ברגליך, ותרפוס נהרותם. I'm going to read from the English. You emerged with your rivers, and you churned waters with your feet, and you fouled the rivers. Vatirpos, the word vatirpos, is to trample on something. You trampled on something with your feet. And so here you find in the Mikah, here it's with the Samech, that the word, the shoresh, reish, pei, Samech, yes, that means to trample on something. So when you're going to name something a mirpeset, it literally means a place to trample, a place to step on, somewhere where you walk a lot. There's one more place here in Yecheskel where it's not far. So if you go to chapter 34, pasuk 18. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Hame'at mikem, hamireh hatov, tiru." ויתר מיריכם תרמסו ברגליכם. Is it not enough for you that you have good pastures to graze in? That you also have to trample the rest of the pastures? ומשקע מים תשתו, ואת הנותרים ברגליכם תרפוסון. And this is with a sin, not a samech, but you know that in Hebrew, a sin and a samech could be interchangeable. And he complains at HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why are they trampling with their feet? So again, the word mirpeset is from the meaning of trampling. And the mirpeset was, in those days, it was a place that people used to go from there to the attics, from there to other parts of the house. And therefore, it was a place that was very public. It was very very walked in, and that's how it got the name Milpeset. When I was jumping down this rabbit hole today, I felt like I'm going to do justice. Yes, Milpeset is not an English word; it is a Hebrew word, and its root is found elsewhere that you might not think that's where the word Milpeset comes from. I thought it was a interesting side point. Let's read together. So if you build this porch in front of your house, or you build this balcony, or bayit she'en bo arba amot al arba amot, or you build a house that doesn't have 4 amot by 4 amot. What is 4 amot? An amah is about 1.5 feet. So 4 amot, 6 feet. 6 feet by 6 feet. This table is 6 feet. So you can imagine it would be a square. Let's just put 2 of these together. That's the minimum size of room that is considered livable for a person. That's what's considered a house. Oha gozel bait. This is my favorite one. Or if you steal someone's house, harei zeino chozer. These are the people that don't go back from war. Okay, this is important halakha. Why is it important? You live in a place where it's illegal to steal houses, so it's important to know this halakha. Number one, if a person builds some kind of addition to their house, it's a porch, it's a balcony, it's an entryway, it's a little unit on the side that's very small, you bought a shed from Costco for your backyard, doesn't matter. All of those things don't count as having built a place where you can live in, and therefore, you're not exempt from going to war. But, on top of that, you might think that any way that I get a house, I'm able to go back from war. So if I buy a house, if I build a house, if I inherit a house, if I'm given the gift of a house, all those reasons are reasons to come back from war. What if I steal a house? Maybe if I steal a house, I can come back from war. It has to be said that if you steal a house, you're not exempt from war. It's not your house. You can't steal someone's house and be exempt from war. There are many halachot like this. Halulav gazul. If you have a lulav that is stolen, can you fulfill a mitzvah with a stolen lulav? No, you can't. It's a classic. In general, can you do an avera, a mitzvah that comes through an avera? No, you're not allowed to do a mitzvah abba b'dei avera. If you're doing something wrong to do something right, it's not usually okay. There's some argument about that. If the doing of the wrong happens at the same time as doing the good, like you're stealing the lulav, so while you're blessing the lulav, are you still stealing it? Yes. So then that's not okay. But if you commit the crime, but now the crime is over, and then you're doing something, they're different. People who like to split hairs, they spend a lot of time in these kind of sugyot. I'm not one of them. What I mean about stealing a house? How do you steal a house in California?
You gave an example once of someone who robbed the house and inherited everything that the guy had.
Oh, that was a real example. So I took a course here in the laws of self-defense, and one of the cases that came up, but this is a little removed. Wait, I'm going to tell that story. Let me tell that story in a second. You say the more classic case. Oh, that's even more metucham. So actually, like stealing the house, that's real stealing.
Forged the signature on it. That does happen.
More common. It happens every day in this country, especially. HOAs are evil people, but I don't know if they count as stealing houses. Ah, very good. Let's say you rented a house to someone. Now they move in, they sign a 1-year lease with you. And they're supposed to pay you X amount of money every month. And they decide after 2 months, hey, they lost their job, life is tough, they're not paying you rent. So what happens now? Really, if they can't pay rent, I'd agree there's some kind of notice you should give them, and then they have to leave the place. But you live in a place where that's not so simple. You give them notice, but they still don't have to leave your place. And if you get the police involved, they'll tell you, listen, it's a dispute. They have a contract with you. I don't know, they're paying you, not paying you, go to the judge. And the judge, it all comes from a misguided place of people want to protect tenants. They want to protect tenants from all kinds of slumlords and evil people there are definitely people like that, by the way. And so part of it is that it's not so easy to evict a tenant, which means that people can stay in your house for a very, very long time without paying you anything. When the bank comes knocking on your door for the mortgage payment, they don't care if your tenant is paying you or not. They're here to get their money. If you were expecting, because you only make a certain amount of money from your job every year, and you were expecting income from the house, which is going to cover the mortgage, now you're either going to have to dip into the money that you live from and then owe somebody else money somewhere else, or eventually you're going to lose your house. And why will you lose your house? Not because it's your fault, not because you were not responsible, because the law is protecting somebody who's stealing from you actively. I mean, the person who lives in the house is a squatter. It can happen, not even that. You can have a vacation house in Deal, New Jersey. I don't know what the laws in New Jersey are, but in New Jersey, there are people, they live in New York the whole year. And then because living in New York is so horrible, they have to, forgive me for the people in New York, you have to leave at a certain point to breathe. You want to see trees, you want to see animals, you want to look at the sky and be able to see it without any smog in it. So you buy a vacation house somewhere else. And so you bought a vacation house. Do you live in your vacation house every day? No, you leave it vacant. You lock all the doors, you do whatever you do. And then you come in the summer and you find out there's a whole family of people living in there. They broke in, they changed the locks, and they're living in your house. So what do? First thing, you call 911. The police come, and they say, sorry, we can't get involved. It's not an emergency. Not an emergency. We don't know papers. We're not judges. We're just police officers. You can sue them in court. And then you start a whole process of evicting the people. By the time you get them out, it's not just that you lost your summer, you're not in the house. Probably your winter break, you also can't go back to the house. It's months and months and months and months and months.
Of sorts and her mail was in the house, was making payments, and the bank had already foreclosed the house and sold it to another family. When they came to move in, this woman was in the house and she had no idea that she had already lost.
Unbelievable.
The battles that ensued.
We had somebody here in this call. He's not with us anymore. He passed away. I'm not saying his name just because I don't want to upset anybody. But he once had a tenant in his house that wouldn't get out. I remember he had to bring them a suitcase of cash to pay them to leave his house. He was losing more money by letting them stay than by paying them. It was a lot of money. It was tens of thousands of dollars in cash to evict them. He did the math. How much would lawyers cost, legal fees, how many months, all that time he's paying utilities, he's paying his property taxes, he's paying his mortgage on that. It wasn't worth it for him. That's stealing. Like, those people are like any other person who steals. So you mentioned, Zev, a different story that I talked about. I once took a self-defense class. And this reminds me of what we read last night in the Nevi'im, where we had Achav stealing the house of Navot, or not the house, the vineyard of Navot. And Eliyahu Hanavi, what does he tell him? Haratzachta v'gam yarashta. You murdered somebody and you inherited them. This is today an Israeli expression. It's an important one. You can't kill somebody and then wait around for their inheritance. There are people like that in the world. Right. Imagine a son kills his parents, waiting or you have lo aleinu in this country all the time, spouses that kill each other for the life insurance policy. It happens a lot. Okay, so this is something that is, in the words of the Nevi'im, how dare you? It's bad enough you killed somebody. Now you also expect to take their money from them? This happens all the time. And anyone who's ever been involved in inheritances, I said right, you know that always there's problems surrounding this. Doesn't matter how clear a will is, doesn't matter how clear parents are. Very often there are people who they stick around and they manipulate. It's nice that you expect a part of the inheritance, but what happens if one of the uncles or the aunts or the brothers or the sisters or the cousins drains all of the person's bank account while they're in some senior home, not 100% think of it, and then what's left? Oh yeah, sure, you could have 50% of the dollar that's left in the bank account. Happen. I know that some people here even have personal experience with that. That's a very common thing. How dare you? And by the way, usually, I'm not saying always, usually the person who does that is the one who cares the least about the parent while they were alive. It's not the one who was there and took care of them, who was the doctor's. It was the one who, their nature is who they are. Someone who steals. And so this is important. Even if you live in California and the court lets you stay in someone's house that you stole, doesn't mean that you are now exempt from going to war. Just because you got away with stealing doesn't exempt you from the rest of your national obligations. That was the story connected to that was what Zev is recalling. And that is that I took a course here, and the man who was teaching the course was a law enforcement professional. He said there was a story, and I don't remember where, so don't hold me to where, but a story that happened here in the United States, where there's a law. The law requires that you provide safe working conditions for people who serve your home. So, for example, the postal workers, they come to your front door, and your kid leaves some scooter by the front door, and not you, one of your siblings, and they fall in the scooter, chas v'shalom, they can sue you for providing unsafe working conditions. I mean, even though it's private property, but you're supposed to make sure there's a clear way to the front door, because that's what they expect when they come to their work site, which is your house. This guy family was on vacation. He had broken into their house, and he was coming into the sun skylight, and he fell onto the kitchen counter and broke his back on a kitchen full of dirty dishes and all kinds of things that were out there. And he lay there for a while until people came home, reported him, 911. Ultimately, this man ended up surviving and then suing the homeowners. Why? Because very good. Because he is a professional thief. He is a professional thief, and they failed to provide him with safe working conditions. You think it's funny? He lost his criminal trial. I mean, he went to prison. When he came out of prison, he started a civil suit, and the civil suit was, I need, my back hurts, I'm going to chiropractors, I need to take medications, or whatever he's doing. And he won that court case. He won that court case. And ultimately, this law enforcement official told me that he ended up having to sell his house. And who bought it? The crook. And he lost his house to the guy who stole from him, who sued him. When you hear the Torah tell us that we have to ensure mishpat tzedek, a righteous judgment, that's what it means. It doesn't matter that according to the law, you can make an argument. Let's say a good lawyer knows the law and a better lawyer knows the judge. It doesn't matter that you have a good way to make a legal argument. If it's not tzedek, at the end of the day, you're telling me that you're going to give away the house of the homeowner to the criminal who stole from him because of some loophole in a law? So where is the judge that says, hey, I'm not going to let that happen over my dead body? What happens, though, in a court system like ours? The judge is not really a judge. Listen carefully what I'm telling you. Most judges are actually clerks. Forgive me if what I'm going to say now is going to offend some people. This is true in most professional industries. Medical professionals, for the most part, are not so free to, I'm treading lightly, okay, to make their own medical decisions. If there's a certain expectation in the medical establishment that this is the way you treat a certain illness, and you choose to do it a different way. Why? 30 years of experience, 50 years of... You decide to go against whatever the status quo is, you could lose your license. You could be penalized. This goes with many fields. You could be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and you feel the right way to help this person is through this method, but this method is no longer allowed to be practiced in a certain place. That even though that would be the best thing for the patient, it's very possible that this mental health professional could lose their licensure and their ability to practice, because at the end of the day, they're not free. They're beholden to somebody else. The same is true with judges. What are judges? If a judge has minimum sentencing requirements, for example, the judge sees, and I gave this example once, there's a lady who's been stealing. They arrest her at Walmart stealing formula for her baby. And she's in a place where there's a 3 strikes and you're out rule. And they come to court, and the judge hears what's going on. He sees she's living in a homeless shelter. He sees that she gets a certain stipend maybe for welfare, but it's not enough to cover the needs of this special child who was born premature. And the judge says, listen, really, I don't want to throw the book at her. She committed a crime. She's going to have to pay back Walmart for stealing, but she's going to have to do something, some community service, whatever she's going to have to do. But the law requires that because it's her 3rd strike, I got to lock her up. So what does that mean? I take her away. I put her in prison. I take away the baby. I put him in foster care. I take the other 2 siblings, and now they're separated. So they're all separated and different people for the next, 3 years that she's going to be in prison. And those 3 years, those kids meet all kinds of unsavory people, and they end up doing all kinds of crazy things. And by the time she comes out, it's almost a miracle if she can put that family back together again. I just listened to a lady who, similar situation. She was actually a criminal. She committed a crime, and she went to prison, and her baby was taken away from her by foster care. And she explained what she had to endure as a nursing mother who was no longer able to nurse. The pain that she went through, the infections she went through, how do you stop milk supply in a person? It's a whole, especially in prison where medical care is not what you would think it is. If the judge says, I don't want to lock this person up, I'd rather make them pay a fine. I'd rather make them volunteer at Walmart. I'd rather, maybe it's my opportunity to interfere and get her into some kind of government housing. She's clean. She's not a drug addict. She doesn't drink. I want to help this family the judge has all kinds of powers, but now the judge can't because the law says there's a minimum sentence that has to happen here. that judge, according to halacha, is no longer a judge. That judge is a clerk. I could put you there. I could sit there. The book says this person comes. This is what you do. This is what happens. This is what you say. Then there's no need for judgment. There's no deen that's happening there. It's just there's a rule. Enter the formula. If this happens and this happens, then that's the result. What do I need a judge? What do I need a person who knows the law and understands humanity and cares? What do I need that for? And so you can live in a world that has a legal system but has no justice system. And that's a very scary reality. The Torah warns us over and over and over again. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. V'shaftu am mishpat tzedek. You have to judge people righteously. Why is the Torah so concerned? The Torah is afraid that there will come a generation that uses the law, in the Torah's case, the Torah, to commit injustice against people in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the name of the land of the free and the home of the brave, I'm going to make people not free, and I'm going to make people scared. In the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is good, all-knowing, all-compassionate, I'm going to make people suffer. The Torah is afraid of that. So who does the Torah entrust to execute judgment? Judges. That's where the Rambam crosses over to Mishpat Tzedek. You have time for another halakha? Yes. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's correct. I'm going to say something dangerous right now. I know some of the Maimonideans in the world will get mad at me for it. There's a certain idea among some of the Chachamim, especially those who are not Maimonideans, that one should make themselves holy even by refraining from things which the law permits. And obviously when used to circumvent the law or replace the law or displace the law, it's a bad thing. But I think the point that some of those Chachamim were trying to make was, it cannot be a situation in which the law that is intended to protect people ends up hurting people because of a technicality in the law. It cannot be that because of some corruption that someone is going to use the law to hurt people, and even if that means temporarily breaking a law, which is wrong, but if breaking the law is going to do the right thing, then there are times, not every person, not everywhere, not every individual can make these decisions. There are times where the end may justify the means, if that's the purpose of what the Torah wants from us. I know that what I'm saying is dangerous. I'm just limiting it. That's all.
So in other classes, the law is meant to be interpreted by the rabbi or the authority who's
Okay, so
into the situation.
what happens to us today, though, when we hear that? Anyone who's experienced corrupt rabbinic leadership is automatically going to be scared that, oh my gosh, that's what we're going to... Those people are going to interpret the law to do whatever they want. And that's what we're afraid of. But just because we're afraid of that doesn't mean that there's no right way to do what you just said. Meaning, there has to be a balance here. Okay, let's look at the fields, the vineyards. Halakha Vav. So we're back in the Laws of Kings, chapter 7, Halakha Vav. Echad hanotea kerem. If one person plants a vineyard. Vechad hanotea chamisha ilane ma'achal. And one person plants 5 fruit trees. Vafilu michameshet minei ma'achal. Even if they're 5 different fruit trees. Baruch, how many fruit trees do you have? More than 5. Are you have 5 of the same of anything? No. Okay, so meaning it doesn't have to be 5 of the same tree, but just 5 of any fruit tree that makes collectively 5. Echad hanotea, whether it's a person who plants the tree, vechad hamavrich. What is a mavrich? I'm not a planter, so I'm hoping Baruch's in him. Yeah. It's close to grafting. It's not exactly grafting, right? Grafting is mankiv. Yeah. Okay, here. Okay. The word in Hebrew, mavrich, means... Oh. What does mavrich mean? The word mavrich. Vayavrich et hagemalim. You remember that in Bereshit? I think it's Bereshit, right?
מלשון ברך.
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. So I made a mistake in the Vayvarech hagemalim. Vayvarech hagemalim meaning he need them. Mean he brings them down. I don't know if there's mamash a connection here. I know that's a pasuk just popped in my head right now. Vayavrich means to pull something down, to take something down. If you want to get a little crazy, the Mekubalim around the word Baruch Ata Hashem, they understand it's about bringing down things. That's where they get that whole idea from. But Vayavrich means you take a tree, you take a branch from the tree, you pull it down, or you mentioned strawberries or vines, you pull it down, you plant it in the ground. It's going to get roots, and eventually you disconnect it from the previous plant. The image of when they bend, the way they get down. Okay, Baruch Hashem, thank you. So, so this method, yeah. So it's not a brand new tree. Is it a new? You just took it from the previous tree, or hamarkiv, v'chad hamarkiv, havracha, v'harkava she chayevet be'olam. What is markiv? So that's grafting. What is grafting? Why would I graft something? Or what is first tell me what it is, then tell me why I would do it.
Two kind of thing to put it together.
Why?
It gets better. It gets better fruit.
Okay, etrog is the greatest example. Etrog is a great. Etrog.
Etrog is very weak tree. So if you put the kosher part aside, you need to graft it to make it stronger.
For example, somebody who wanted to grow etrogim for the sake of eating them or making tea or jam or whatever they want. I mean, forget halakha here. The best way to do it, the etrog tree is very weak. It's a very weak fruit tree. Some people start, I think you start like 11 or 12, and then you end up only with a few left after many. It could even be a few years in, and the tree will fail. And it's a very weak tree. And so the best way to grow it is on another citrus tree, which is you cut a place and you put the, I'm not exactly expert how you graft it, but you graft the etrog tree into a lemon tree, let's say. Yeah. And so now it's a stronger tree. It's still going to give you etrogim. Those etrogim might not be kasher. There's a huge argument, by the way, among chachamim. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about it actually. Okay, fine. Right now we're talking about this technical. Very good, Avina. Here, this is called harkava. So you cut off a tree here and you plant it onto the trunk of another tree. Havacha v'harkava she chayevet be'olam. Anything that requires you to enter the new orla. So orla is when you plant a tree for the first 3 years, you are not allowed to enjoy those fruits. You can't get benefit from them. If you do this, for example, you bend the branch into the ground, are you allowed to eat the fruits that come out of that new tree for the first 3 years? So long as it's connected, yes. Once you disconnect it, no. So meaning the laws of Ola are very much connected here. These are technicalities. I'm telling you them because if the tree is considered a new tree, then you are exempt from going to battle. But if it's considered an old tree, meaning you don't have to wait 3 years for it, then are you exempt from going to battle? No. I don't eat raspberries so much. Raspberries I hate, so.
Well, very rare, except for strawberries.
Yeah. Yeah, strawberries I had them out. That's a great question.
They also run ball runners. You don't disconnect them. You can. Eventually, the runner itself.
The strawberries grow from year to year?
Well, I think San Diego would do it. I don't think they do it.
Interesting. V'chad halokeach, v'chad hayoresh, v'chad shenitan lo b'matana. So anybody, whether you bought, you planted, you inherited, all of those, just like with the house, that person is exempt from going to war. Aval hanotea arba'a ilanei ma'achad. But a person who plants only 4 fruit trees, or chamisha ilanei serak, or only 5 trees, but they don't grow fruits. They're cedar trees or whatever trees you're planting. Or shegazal kerem, or if you steal someone's vineyard. Eino chozer alav. You're not exempt from going back to war because of that. Find another one. V'chen kerem shelishne shutafin. And also, if it's a vineyard that's owned by two partners, and chozrin alav, you don't go back from battle because of that. And so you find again, similar to the laws of houses, there are set rules as to whether or not you come back from war because of that. The next section in halakha is going to discuss all about the different relationships that would warrant a person coming back from war or not. And my feeling is that if I pop, it's like the Pringles. Once you pop, you cannot stop. Once you start these halachot, I'm going to be afraid to leave you in the middle of them. Because really here you start to get into all kinds of other questions. Like, if I marry somebody, I don't have to go to war, or I come back from war. But what if I marry somebody who's been married already? Or if I've been married already? Or does it make a difference if she's widowed? Or if she's divorced? Does it make a difference if I'm allowed? Like I said, am I allowed to be married to her? What about Kohanim? What if a Kohen marries someone who he's not allowed to be married to, but there's a kind of marriage that works? Or what if it's a kind of marriage? There are all kinds of laws of marriage.
The king orders a war, like what happened in
Okay, so here you're thinking about, okay, that's already another complication added to the war, which was that even the right thing to do over there? Here we're just keeping this part simple in the sense of which kind of marriage means that I don't go out to war. This is also going to be directly connected to all the laws that have to do with couples that get married now. So there are all kinds of laws about the first year of marriage, the laws of Sheva Berachot, the laws of who leaves the house, who doesn't, the expectations that exist between these couples. I really want to then jump into some of these things with you a little bit deeper. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the show here. If not, I'm going to need another half an hour. I don't have another half an hour to do this all with you. So, B'ezrat Hashem, let me pause here. Next week, we'll take it from there. My only calculation is, how many more weeks do I have until Pesach? Okay, my worst case scenario, if I don't have enough weeks to finish this in, I'll add a Monday night class in the laws of Purim and Pesach. That way we can not lose anything. We'll do one night Purim Pesach, one night, or something like that. I'll work out an arrangement like that. Okay, so we should still have enough time. But I'm also traveling a little bit in between those, so I just have to make sure I get enough of them. But B'ezrat Hashem, those are the halachot that we did today. I think what you can see from these halachot is one, that the reason why halachot have details, people sometimes get frustrated from the details, but the details are important. You have to be able to determine what is what. On top of that, there's always going to be fraud. There are always going to be problems. In this shiur, we're going to discuss eventually about drafting yeshiva students to the military or not. We've mentioned that. Like last week, we discussed about whether we draft women or not. There was a suggestion put out a few years ago that maybe when we draft yeshiva students, we'll give them a test. And whichever are the yeshiva students that pass a certain test, they're the ones that we won't draft. And the ones that are just, making coffee in the yeshiva, we'll draft those. Or maybe we'll ask the Rosh Yeshivas for recommendations, who are their best students, who are their weaker students, and we'll kind of figure out, do all of these people have to be exempt, or maybe only some of them? Remind me about the Cantonists. Yeah.
Except he didn't snatch the kids. He came to the rabbis and said, give us a quota.
Oh, they teach that in school? The Russians used to take kids to the army, but not army service, 25 years. The person would disappear. Russia, but nothing has changed in Russia. Russia is the same. It always was. I don't know. The Russians, they just, in Russia, they wear bear skins. They just change the skins they wear, but it's the same country. The people may be beautiful people, but the government of Russia, for whatever reason, and I'm afraid we're going to travel in the world, but it's not a normal place. According to them, maybe. According to the standards of the rest of the world, it's not free. It's not, definitely not the land of the free, the home of the brave. It's not that. And And I said this on Shabbat, and I don't regret saying this on Shabbat. I told him before you came that I'm committing myself not to talk about everything that I don't know about. But this I know about. There are certain countries in the world you shouldn't travel to. I stand by what I say.
No,
They're
that's the second thing
dangerous.
you mentioned.
That was the second thing I mentioned. They're dangerous places to go. You have a legal system that you're up against that is not normal, and there's no reason why you should go there. And there are places in the world you should not visit. They may be beautiful places. They may have wonderful things to see. They, for the most part, might be very safe. There are enough beautiful countries in the world that you can visit that have normal governments, that have normal police forces, that have normal. You don't need to find yourself in some place in the world that is dangerous for you. It's fine. It's tricky. I'm not telling you it's better. So travel quickly.
I think there's a big difference in learning something like dry. You just run through a list. With this, if the husband is like this, that, go to war. And giving examples and situations and working through it situationally so you really understand all the parameters.
Of course, that's right. And that's why I wanted to say this, which is the Cantonists remind me. So they would take people, and not everybody wanted their kids to go to war. 25 years, that means losing a child, essentially. And so what they would do, they'd go to the rabbis or they go to the wealthy people, whoever it was, they would make lists. The Jewish community would make lists. Until today, in many Jewish communities, they take lists. Like they keep who are the Jews, where they live, what are their phone numbers. And when you read stories of World War II, the first place the Nazis went were to the Jewish communities to get the list. Why do they have to hunt Jews? They could just get the list of Jews. And for me, it's always been like, whenever I see like a membership directory of a synagogue, I'm like, why are you guys doing this? I don't understand why you're letting everybody know where all the Jews are, where they live, where they work, what they do. Bad memories that it brings up. But the rich Jews, or the rabbinic families, the elite families, always made sure that the kid who didn't have a parent, or the kids whose parents weren't so wealthy, or the families didn't really like in the community, they would make sure their kids got taken to fill the quota. And the rich people's kids and the rabbis' kids and the elite members of the community's kids never got touched. And so don't think that this wouldn't happen the same thing. If you would go ask some Rosh Hashiva in Bnei Brak or Yerushalayim, give me your students that should go to the military. It doesn't matter that his son is a good for nothing. He's not sending his son. He's not going to send his donor's son either. He's going to send your son. And so even though it might be a great idea on paper, you're assuming that the people that you are up against are not corrupt. People are corrupt everywhere. You give people an opportunity to steal. Also, by the way, that's the main justification. The main justification is, do you remember Yaakov Avinu?
When people talk about the slave trade, they don't realize that the starting point of the slave trade were not white colonists. Meaning people did with black tribes selling other people.
The same way that Jewish slavery, Jews were being sold by Jews. This is not a. But what does Yaakov Avinu say? Im Naval. Yaakov Avinu? Yaakov Avinu says, listen, I'm not afraid of my father-in-law. If he tricks me, I'll trick him back. Meaning, you have an obligation to tell the truth, but there are times where telling the truth, the classic case they give you in like morality classes is, if the Nazis come to your door and say, are there any Jews hiding here? Do you tell them yes or no? I mean, but aren't you supposed, you're not supposed to lie. You're supposed to tell the truth. By the way, there seems to be one place where you're not allowed to lie. There seems to be one place where you're not allowed to lie. Someone asks if you're Jewish. There's a halakha like that in Shulchan Aruch. But I'm putting that halakha on the side. Right now, there are circumstances. And so they say, listen, the reason why we can defraud the Russian government is because they're evil people. So we're able to be evil to them back. Maybe yes, maybe no, but you joined the category of evil people when you sent all the orphans to go to the military. That wasn't okay. And so, yes, that may be a great system to determine which students go to the military, which don't, but you're going to create a situation where the corruption is terrible. It's terrible. And I'm going to add to you one more thing, and that is, not all Talmidei Chachamim, and don't learn from here that I'm telling you that yeshiva students should not go to the military. That's not the point of this conversation at all. Don't think that all the Talmidei Chachamim in the world started off brilliant Talmidei Chachamim. Yes, there's a part of people that are brilliant and make sure they're successful in life. There are many brilliant people that are dropouts living in the streets. Many brilliant people. And the other people that were not born with any special gifts, but they were given dedication and diligence, and they work hard. And there are people who work hard, and they outdid everybody else. Even Ma'asu Habonim, David HaMelech, probably talking about himself. We say this in Tehillim, we always think about some building. I'm thinking about David HaMelech. Even Masu Habunim, the stone that the builders hated, they didn't even want it, Hayta leRosh Pina. It became the cornerstone of the building. David HaMelech came from a family. But when they come looking for him, the king of Israel lives here, the parents didn't even bother to show him because he was for sure not the kid you're looking for. He's the greatest king we ever had in history. And his parents thought nothing of him. David HaMelech in Tehillim, Ki avi v'imi azavuni. My mother and father have abandoned me. V'Adonai yasveni. Adonai has collected me. Nobody else cares about me. Who? David HaMelech. You think that right now you see a child, you see a person, and you think, I can determine already they're going to be successful in life? When Bill Gates dropped out of school, everybody was probably telling him, you're going to be a good for nothing. But listen, if you're going to equate being good for nothing with dropping out of school, then maybe. But in terms of success, financial success, in terms of, he's not the only one. There are many such people. Steve Jobs, same exact story. There are many such people. I'm not telling you it's the right way. Don't encourage your children to drop out of school. Maybe you also don't want to encourage your children to be like Bill Gates. I'm not telling you either way. What I'm telling you is that you cannot judge always from a person today who they're going to be one day. There are some people, yes, but most people not. She'eno sha'a. Yeah, and the Chachamim tell us, Ki malchutayu bata'u denayu, that always, there are some people now, they look like they're some nobody, but their kingdom is standing right behind their ear. Meaning, they're right there, they're going to make it, and they're going to make it big. And so, B'ezrat Hashem, we should believe in ourselves also. But there are always going to be fraudsters, always people trying to get out of doing what's right because of some technicality. And therefore, Chachamim feel very clearly that they need to delineate who goes to war, who doesn't go to war. Don't try to get out on a technicality, because in every war, people try to do that.